Monster Hunter Wilds has been out for around 6 months now, and I honestly can't remember the last time a game climbed as high as it did in terms of popularity and engagement within the first few months of its release. Monster Hunter Wilds looked like it had all in the imaginary bag, of course, with promises of all kinds of additions and a more mainstream approach to its story and combat that emphasizes accessibility over the tried and true hardcore mechanics. And it all seemed like the best possible idea, with the launch being what it was, and the game hit a staggering 1.179 million concurrent players on Steam alone, which, knowing the Monster Hunter series, is an amazing achievement. And as a player who has been playing this series of games for a long period of time, I could not help but feel super happy that the game got the love that it so rightly deserved. But over the course of the 6 months now since its release date, we've seen a steep downhill in terms of player opinions and a visible lack of content in the game that so many of us really thought would be there, especially the hunters that jumped straight into this from the likes of Monster Hunter World or Rise. But why is that, you might be wondering? I'm super glad you asked that question, my broski. In this video, we're going to be looking at exactly that, why it's sitting at around 25 to 30-ish thousand players on Steam, which is the same as World or Rise, and why it's also sitting at a mixed review overall, with the latest reviews being mostly negative. So it's not looking good in the long run. So subscribe if you're new, and let's get into why Monster Hunter Wilds drop from frame should be studied in universities, broski. Now look, I don't think this topic in particular should be studied in schools at all, honestly. Like, there's so many better topics to study, like freaking basic finances or roundabouts, because what the hell, man? Why does no one know how roundabouts work? In Finland especially, like, what is going on? But roundabouting, back to the topic at hand, man, I recently jumped back into Wilds with a certain level of excitement on what I have missed, and if the game of course runs any better than it did at launch, because it was garbaggio. Mind you, I finished the base game back in March of this year and didn't really jump into the end game content because there wasn't really much to jump into, in all honesty. I mean, it was like a lake that was a mile wide but an inch deep, or some other fancy quote like that, because there were only so many monsters to keep on hunting, and well, you can only hunt that tentacle bitch so many times before it gets really boring. So I did move on eventually, and have been following the news and updates for the last months in complete shock, because the game's direction has been slowly but surely turning more and more players away from it and onto older titles or other RPGs completely. I feel like at every turn they fixed one thing but absolutely dogged on other aspects of Monster Hunter Wilds, and considering what it's like for new players and veterans, I think the Rathalos in the room, I like what I did there, is the performance of the game overall. Now look, do I think the game should and could run a lot better? Absolutely. Do I think the game is terrible and it warrants the overwhelmingly negative reviews based on only performance? Well, hell's to the no. But there's also a reason as to why it sits at those reviews. Now, of course, performance varies depending on your rig of choice, and on my 3070 Ti, I had a somewhat mixed time with Wilds. Anything from blurry textures to pop-ins to the game just crashing altogether. It's all still very much here, but I do have to say it's been way less destructive this time around to my PC than what it was back at launch. I do tend to skip all of the talking in this game overall, so I don't really care much for the cutscenes and all of that stuff, so that part didn't affect me all that deeply. But for newer players who are in this for the story as well, I do see why that would be a issue, because man, watching a slab of polygons talk really breaks the immersion, right? If you can get past the performance woes though, there is the other topic of content, or the lack thereof. And honestly, broski, I am freaking mixed on this topic as well, because yes, I understand the frustration and the repetitiveness of this game at this moment in time, but I also think what's being said out there is super reactionary to what Monster Hunter is at its core. It's literally a game where you hunt monsters, carve some shit out of the monsters to get better gear to hunt more monsters. I mean, it's literally a loop of gameplayism that I just made up a real word there. But in general, it's just a gameplay loop of monster hunting, of course. But with that being said, I do completely understand why, when looking at the player counts of World or even Rise compared to Wilds, man, there is much more carne in those games, hence the almost similar concurrent players. It just makes sense for fans of the series who would play this game first to end up playing those games as well, because there is just more content in them, and then jump back to Wilds once there are more updates that further add the monsters into this game and more things to hunt. Those games are also way more polished compared to Wilds, and some might argue there is more of a challenge in those games games as well. Now, look, I can't really say anything on the matter because, well, I'm a bitch and I use the NPC hunters or other more experienced hunters to help me in most missions. So I feel like I don't have any valid opinion on the difficulty matter, but I will say this. Wilds is by far the most accessible Monster Hunter game there is, and it helps the player out a lot with the environmental stuff and a powerhouse of a buffed Palico by your side who can lay the absolute schmackage on the enemies if needed. I mean, they can also lay traps now, which, come on, that's like the greatest thing ever. And with the added NPC hunters as well, man, there's just way more accessibility in this game when compared to other ones, which can look like it's a lot easier, which, I mean, yes, to go further into that, yes, it is easier because it's more accessible, but accessibility, does it make the game at its core easier? No, but yes, but I'm so confused. And also, look, man, in World and Rise, at launch, they weren't exactly difficult either. And with players jumping straight from Alatreon or other really tough added content monsters from those games to vanilla Wilds, I mean, if the game did not feel easier, then I should really have you look in the mirror, broski, because that is a skill issue. But like I said, I used NPC hunters, so yeah, man. Yeah, let me just shut up with that. But with all those issues that I have been talking about for a good few minutes now, look, as soon as I downloaded the game, played with the settings to get my game running properly, I honestly could not stop smiling my broski. Like, I'm talking constant ear-to-ear smilage, because the game was just so much fun to play in general. I missed the grind and these hunts so much in these last few months that jumping back into this was just the best thing ever for me personally. Granted, I would have liked there to be more carne in this game, but I had like the same amount of fun overall than I would have in World or even Rise. I mean, the gameplay loop is just super fun, and new monsters in this installment are both a treat to look at, but also the game, man, in general, when it looks good, it looks nice. And I for one think that the added accessibility options in terms of getting to the action and staying in the action better makes for a really enjoyable experience overall. But one thing I do miss that really grinds my gears is not having a proper canteen. I mean, yes, there is a canteen in the new gathering space, but man, where's the old granny from Iceborne? Like, I miss her so much. Add her back in, Capcom. Come on, please. Also, man, watching these cooked meals in this game really makes me question if the devs wanted to actually make a monster hunting game or a cooking game, because the amount of polygons I get on a slice of fucking cheese when compared to your handler is, well, alarming. Wilds at this moment in time is a game that is very nice to come back to, but will more than likely get boring if you keep playing it for an extended period of time. With the lack of content at this moment, as well as the performance woes, I do fully understand the uproar and the review bombing, but underneath all of that is a game that is not only fun to play, but is very much a Monster Hunter game, even if a bit more streamlined. I gotta be honest, man, I was mad as frig during the launch of this game because I didn't like the streamlined aspects. The difficulty as well felt super easy, and well, the dog shit performance kind of speaks for itself, and they did overall do their part in affecting my time with it originally. But now, 6 months later, I'm playing a game that is both fun and engaging, albeit in short bursts. There are still, what, 48 freaking monsters to hunt altogether, even if a bunch of them are just recolored versions of the same species. But yeah, looking over that fact, for the new player, that is quite a bit of hunting to do. Add to that the story and the amount of weapons and playstyles in this game. This is one of, if not the best introduction into the series. It's just a shame that the best introduction is the latest game in this long lineage of Monster Hunter games. That makes it kind of feel like veterans or existing fans weren't really accounted for in the development process. And that kind of sucks, in all honesty. And it makes it so that if you've played even one prior title before jumping into Wilds, then you'll most likely just walk through the campaign in no time and get to the lack of content phase quicker. But if you're new and looking for a game that not only has a great introduction to the series, but also is a fun game overall to play, then Monster Hunter Wilds, man, that is one to be checking out. With that being said, that pretty much wraps it up for this video, and I know it's a bit controversial for the old Monster Hunter fans out there, so I do want to hear your comments in the comment section down below, my bro Chacho. Any and all comments do take this video a long ass way to the greatness of the tubes, even though the algorithm is apparently against us now. So yeah, man, let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, man. Why not? You made it to this part of the video, you might as well subscribe to the broskoso. I'm making up words today. If you want to watch me ramble on some more, then click this video right here, my bro Chacho. Don't really know how to end this video, so keep on trucking, my dudes. I'll catch you in the next upload. Peace out.